You are listening to Able Radio, simplifying productivity for small business owners everywhere. If you are looking for 1% improvements that add up to big results, this is the place for you. Every week, we learn about simple systems and tools that will help you build the business and life you've always wanted. Now here's your host, Zachary Sexton.
Welcome to Able Business Radio. My name is Zachary Sexton, and today I'm very excited to be talking with, I'm only going to pronounce your last name once, I promise, Ruoyun. How far off was I?
No, you're perfectly fine. You did as well as you could too.
My tongue does not go that way, unfortunately. But I'm really excited to be talking with you, Ruoyun, because we've had a couple conversations. You are a local social media expert in the Austin area. And the reason I'm having you on is a little bit different, because a lot of times when it comes to productivity, or even particularly small business productivity, social media is one of those things that people are like, oh, don't waste your time on Facebook, or, oh, this is something that distracts you. That's from the productivity realm. And then from the small business realm, I feel like people are always like, oh man, I should do more with social media. I really should be working towards more of that. And I am smack dab in the middle. So I want to have you come on, maybe solve some of my problems and potentially offer some solutions that other people can more productively use their limited time and energy and attention to make the most of social media. Because if done correctly, you can get a super good ROI on social media. If done incorrectly, you can just waste a lot of time. Mm-hmm. Sounds like, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so social media in a nutshell, and just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page of when we talk about productivity, return on investment, is what does social media mean? Because there's a ton of definitions out there. So I just want to clarify real quickly what it is that social media plays really two roles. Zach, and you and I have talked about this on and on. Most people know it as kind of that advertising arena, or just the short-term goal of like, can you afford not to be found? So presenting a very nice visual portfolio of who you are. But the secondary part and the more powerful return on investment that Zach was mentioning too is that social media is really a customer relations management tool. It allows you to take the physical conversation that you had with that person at your business, or if you did finish a service with them, but it allows you to stay top of mind, keep that conversation going, and then they either come back through the funnel again, or they bring a friend or refer someone to you, depending on what industry you're in. So I just want to clarify what that means in social media. And really, we get asked a lot of questions. They're like, there's so many great ideas out there. I meet so many people. There's so many things that happens, but I'm overwhelmed. And I always say what we do as a company is that our job is to empower our clients to build that relationship with their customers online, but we do it differently. We do it through education, and most importantly, we do it through helping them build sustainable and scalable marketing and social media marketing processes. Everything in your business is a process, and I'm sure Zach can relate in terms of it. It's all about the step-by-step process and refining and being more efficient. So just in a nutshell of what it means to be social media savvy is different for everyone, but it's also defining what you think is your process and how do you analyze and grow that process.
That's why I was so excited when we originally talked, maybe, that was probably a couple months ago, because it's like, I've never heard it put that way, where process and systems and relationship building, that seems real. That seems important. That seems like something that would be valuable to do, whether you're a small operation like myself, maybe a local business, or even a larger organization. Seems worthwhile. Where what I had been reading or consuming or attempting to do maybe myself seems so tacticky, like, oh, well, you got to do the hashtags and you got to be everywhere and you got to snap and you got to, there's so many different platforms to be on too, that it just becomes overwhelming and feels like you're spinning your wheels. And I had to say, we were talking before we started hitting record, that I'm in one of those modes right now. I'm trying to systematize the sharing of the podcast, and even the simplest, like, okay, let's just put something on Instagram, put something on Twitter, put something on LinkedIn, put something on Facebook, just seems to be a lot of work with very little ROI. And I'm guessing because I don't have one of the C's that I need that you talk about. So your business is called 3C NAMI, and you've got 3C mindsets that we're going to be talking about. And the first one is clarity. So let's talk about getting clear.
So my company's name is C3 NAMI, yes, and it is based off so kind of explaining what those three C's are is clarity, creativity, collaboration, as Zach refers to. And then NAMI, because everyone asks, is like, why NAMI? And I was like, because social media runs like a tsunami wave. When you hit that viral peak, when you hit that snowball effect, it does grow. It's a wave, it comes and goes. And that's relationships, it comes and goes. And so I totally understand where you're coming from, Zach, where it's like, oh, I'm like, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and I don't know because if this is working, if it's truly working. So think of it as waves, right? So one drop in the pool is only going to cause so much effect. But when you have consistent amounts of drops in the pool, you build basically a stream of water that is going into a big pool of water that is creating a bigger effect across the board. And that's the thing, is that I would say, apart from the three C's of the process, the biggest C that you're trying to achieve is consistent communication. So I guess 5 C's total. But so to get consistent communication with your audience is that it goes through kind of the 3 mindsets that we like to walk our clients through. The first one is clarity, and that's strategy. It always goes back to the strategy, and it's more than just, here's my strategy for social media. It is, what I typically like to ask a client is, my job is to be a reflection board as a marketer to my clients. And so that means whatever I do on social media is a direct reflection of who they are. So it goes back to the basics and the macro concepts of, who are you? What is your messaging? What are you doing? How are you offering? Why do you do what you do? And who are you helping? And so the question that Zach asked about, like, do I need to be on Snapchat? And my question is your audience on Snapchat? Are they truly? If your audience, especially like productivity podcast, is older millennials and up, they're not active on Snapchat. The typical Snapchat person is someone that is about 23, 22 or younger, and your productivity podcast may also tailor to that market, but the great majority of your target market is probably someone that has awareness that they need to make sure that they actually put in systems and processes to be productive, and B is willing to make the work. And typically speaking, when you're in college, you're not really at that level yet. You might have some college students at that level, but you might not have majority of them. So then that makes the question, is that platform truly viable for what you need it to do? But if you notice how I went through answering that question of, like, do I need to be on Snapchat? It always goes back to your basic goals and your mission. What do you do? And then once we help our clients define what the main goals are, what their target market is, what their messaging is, what platforms, what campaigns that they use, you now have the strategy. Now, in most cases, that kind of sometimes ends there. You might talk to a lot of people that are genius marketers or genius other people that can give you all the ideas, but that's kind of where you get the overwhelm. You're like, okay, this is a great idea. Now, how in the world do I do this? And so creativity is how that happens.
Ruoyun, before we get into creativity, my mind is still reeling from trying to get around the clarity, and maybe you could tell some stories or walk through some examples for me. So Snapchat, I know I shouldn't be on Snapchat. I actually know where I need to be. My folks tend to hang out on Facebook. I like Twitter, and so I just wish they liked Twitter as well. So maybe everyone get a Twitter account at ZW Sexton. Follow me on Twitter. I've known for a while, or I've figured out over the last few months, that a lot of the folks that I would be helping are already on Facebook. Just happens to be a platform I don't know a lot about. I mean, I've been on it for a long time, but I don't spend a lot of time there, nor know how to market, nor do I really know what my goal would be if I got on Facebook. Yeah, sure, I want to have some conversations, but do I create a group for people, or do I just do it on the page? Do I need to post something every 3 days? And that kind of gets into... And I swear I'll ask one question at the end of this. You really did catch me at a time. And that gets me on a problem I've been talking with some other friends about, which is feeling obliged to, like, just be on this treadmill of just creation, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's not something that I want to be on. I'm very happy to commit to the podcast once a week because I actually really enjoy connecting with new people and talking about ideas. So that's not even a problem for me. It's something I'm drawn to. But posting on Facebook, like I don't know the what should my goals be? How do you help people define their goals?
So it always goes back to the beginning, which is what are your end goals? So what is your end goal that you're trying to achieve, not with the podcast, but like your overarching business goals, what you want to achieve. So knowing our conversations in the past, if we use you as an example, your productivity podcasts are really a kind of a way for someone to get a sense of who you are. It allows you to fulfill yourself in getting knowledge that you want, but it also gets anybody that listening in that gets to know you, they get to see the productivity. But where you really love is like getting to know clients and meet clients one-on-one and help them build their systems and processes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that means that your typical audience, so that means your Facebook is needs to be a combination of both. And it's more than just the
Both
podcast.
what?
It needs to be a combination of both the podcast and your personal brand. Now, let me explain. Typically, what happens when you see so say for example, a coach. So you're a coach clearly, but like most business coaches or life coaches, consultants for community communications within corporations, they do a lot of speaking engagement. So your podcast is equivalent to that, right? But there's no connection between your podcast or their speaking engagements to their personal brand, or they're just really, really known for this one thing. And essentially, your podcast and their one thing, be it a book, a group, or whatever, has its brand identity of its own, but it's under your big personal brand umbrella. So I like to say this. Imagine if I were to go on your website, what would I see on your website? I would see Zachary Sexton, the productivity coach, right? And then I would see three of your pillar offerings, which is like coaching one-on-one, group coaching, and then podcast. And those are your three, but they all live under your brand. So your personal page is not necessarily your social media pages is not necessarily just only about the podcast or only about what Zach does. It's a combination of both. It needs to reflect both of that. Just like how your website showcases all of that very clearly, your social media needs to do the same. Now, the next question is okay, why do people go on my social media? Is it because I'm using my social media to then capture their attention and then bring them through like sales funnels, like auto triggers and things like that, to then they're on a subscription basis? That's a totally different model than if you were to use the podcast as a credibility, but you're still out networking and presenting yourself. Then your social media is really a place for you to continue growing your audience and making your audience more. You're building a community side of that audience, which is a combination of past clients and people that have listened to the podcast. So what social media in there does for you is, in the short term, it's kind of what I talked about. It's that credibility portfolio. It is anybody that's like, okay, well, I met Zach at a networking event. How do I know more about him? Or if I listen to Zach's podcast and I want to learn more about what Zach does and how he really helps people, your social media needs to be that visual portfolio that says, this is how I help. Now, that doesn't mean going in and doing a ton of promotional posts. We'll talk a little bit about the different types of posts, but the long-term goal of it is that it's designed to build a community and an engagement community. Now, because you deal in the coaching arena, you do have the option to do a Facebook group if you desire, and that one is really more so for that one-on-one coaching. So say, for example, you want to take your podcast or you want to start doing like a video series coaching or a program or something like that versus just one-on-one, then your Facebook group is that exclusive Facebook group for that coaching program. But again, it's a part of your offering versus your business page is kind of like that nice living, breathing sales presentation of who you are, and also a community engagement generator. Your private Facebook groups are part of your offerings that you do. Does that help?
It does a little bit, and thank you for being so specific with your example. It does.
Yeah.
This question, I don't know if it lends itself to generalities as much, So you have to maintain two pages, a page and then a group. Is that typically what people do?
So that aligns with if you desire to note, as I say, if you desire to do like a video offering or something like that. But again, it's all back to what do you offer? How do you help them? If your primary sweet spot is doing those one-on-one helps or doing group coaching, then your social media is really it leans more to that short-term ROI of being that visual portfolio. If you don't have your social media happening, then your sales cycle becomes harder to capture sales. So that's what you notice in terms of return on investment. And then if you're limited on time, then that defines where you want to focus your goals. So that's kind of how all that train of thought connects. But if you are looking to do like a video program or series or a 6 weeks program, like group courses, like true group courses, not workshops in person, then you can use a Facebook group. And then that's when you would need to maintain that Facebook group. But it's, again, if you are feeling like that is a part of your business plan and your business goals, then that is the route to go. Now, then the Facebook group route is not designed for everyone. We have clients that would eventually want a Facebook group, but at this point in time in their business, they feel like it is more of, again, that visual brand and less of a need to do a Facebook group. But as their audience control continues to grow and build, and they keep asking for like more interactions with you, then having a Facebook group becomes viable.
Okay.
So it's all about the phasing. That's the key thing, is that when I design, so one thing in Clarity that we do is we design a brand blueprint that breaks everything down. So all the stuff that I listed and the train of thought and that strategic thought process, we break it all down from macro to micro. But then at the end of it, we say, take a deep breath, because it's not going to happen overnight. Here's the implementation plan. And it goes back to that phasing process. Your social media and your marketing in general needs to align with how your business plan and how you're planning on building those milestones and growing. Because if one goes before the other, then you start seeing what most small business owners deal with, which is putting the cart before the horse. So we want to make sure that we're totally aligned with what you're doing in the business development realm and the business planning realm.
What would a perfect example of putting the cart before the horse look like? Because I'm probably doing it.
So a perfect example of a cart before the horse, this is a key example. So I recently was talking to a lady. She has this genius, and I can't say anything because it's patented, but basically she has this awesome, amazing product that will keep like your bathroom sink clean and like not soaked after you wash your face. I can't say any more than that. If you want to learn more, you feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to do interest groups, because she has focus groups that she's working on. So that's the thing. It's like she is at this point, she has set a date. She wants to launch in early fall, and she's like, I want to talk to you right now. And I was like, whoa, wait. And so what I do in the first initial meeting is I'm your reflection board. So when you put the cart before the horse, a cart before the horse is like the instinct of everyone is, I need a website. And I actually say, do you really need a website if your offers are not refined and defined yet? Your website is the most refined and perfected, or as close to perfection as you can get, because the version 1 is usually not. Version 2, 3, 4 after publishing is how you're refining and building your business. That's what a website is. But it is the best version of you. And your social media is the heart and soul of who you are. So more often than not, you have the ability and time to refine your pitch, refine your message across the board into being more cohesively you and who you are. And you can do that on social media because you're getting feedback at the same time. You're seeing how people engage with you, and then you can work on your website. So very oftentimes with our clients like her, well, she's kind of at the very beginning stages. So I actually said, you need to talk to a marketing consultant and refine your messaging and your target market and your branding, and then talk to me, because then I can help. So, or you also have one of our clients, they want to blog on their website, but they're like, I'm not ready to commit to a blog on a website. Then I said, well, at least start on LinkedIn. If your LinkedIn is an easy way of being a secondary website for yourself, especially if you're a personal brand. So like we have a lot of realtors that we've worked with. We have financial asset managers that we've worked with that eventually want to blog. But the thing is that people need to realize on blogs is that it is an SEO strategy. And so people don't naturally go to a blog. People are directed to a blog. But on LinkedIn, people seek out blogs. So if you're a lawyer or a financial asset management person or anybody that deals in B2B, you can have your articles written that is the same content as your blog post, but have it on LinkedIn where people will naturally find it versus having it on your blog. You can have it in both places, and you could do a short form and lead over to your website. But it's like it's the making it consistent and making it something that you want to do before you put it on a website, because the website is the most refined version.
Yeah, I'd never really thought of it that way, because definitely when I started my website, my website's been around for a while, but when I decided to use it as the platform for everything that I do now, the podcast and soon to be YouTube channel and coaching offerings and all the like, I realized it was very hard to get that original sort of copy on there. And rather than social media, I just used coaching as my medium to like, oh, this is actually really resonating with me, or this is really working well for folks. And after that feedback loop of about 6 months, it became a lot more clear what needed to be put where and kind of how everything needed to look. Also, getting somebody to help you with the design of it was very, very nice thing to do. But I never thought of that as a social media as an option to get that feedback, and I think that seems pretty helpful. So, okay, so we're 23 minutes into our first C, and it seems like the most important part. So you got to be clear on what you want, and part of that is are the folks that you're going after on the platform, and maybe if you could do this in 60 seconds, do it. If you can't, I can move on to my next question. But take the top 5 or 6 social media platforms and say who's there. Is that something that you can answer?
Oh God, it's like Spitfire questions at me. So let's see here. Facebook is almost everyone. You're most
Okay.
active. So everyone from 20, it's everyone. It's the big one. It's the big giant in the room, but it is very B2C oriented. It is not B2B. LinkedIn, on the other hand, is the brother that came out of nowhere of Facebook that is interactive, and it's B2B. So if you're business oriented,
And people like that. I struggle with LinkedIn. It seems I can never know where anything is.
I mean, they've gotten a lot better. It used to just be
Okay.
the Rolodex, and now it is actually the user interface is equivalent to Facebook. That's why Facebook and LinkedIn are fighting against each other right now. That's why I say it's like the other brother that came out of nowhere, and they're like having a family drama, but basically is what's happening. So
Are they
LinkedIn,
suing over UX design, or is it just...
no, they're just upping the game of competing. Like it used to be that LinkedIn had their own features that made LinkedIn LinkedIn. Facebook had their own features that made Facebook Facebook. But since LinkedIn like kind of took that same user interface of Facebook into LinkedIn, Facebook was like, well, now it's open game. I can steal any features that what's made you unique and just put it to my mega app that I am. And so that's Facebook. So I would say those are the two. Instagram, very picture oriented. So anybody that is lifestyle oriented, again, B2C, not B2B that much. So that's kind of the picture oriented. YouTube, it is the speaker arena. So if you are a major thought leader and you aim to be a major thought leader and you are comfortable with video, then that is a good place to be. But again, it's really for businesses, it's a place to hold their content, not necessarily be a major thought leader and be a YouTuber, because that's a different pathway altogether. Your Twitter, everybody asks, is Twitter still going to be alive? Yes, it is, because the single most thing is that you can actually directly tweet at the president of the United States. That power is invincible. You can tweet at any large company, any public figure, anybody like that. From a business perspective, if you are trying to be that major thought leader, a major public figure, that is where you need to go.
That's where I connect with actually many of the guests, if not most of the guests. If I don't know them personally, that's how I connect with them. So it seems like people who enjoy ideas are on Twitter. And that direct, yeah, I love that direct question. I really like it when people DM me because it seems lighter and easier, or tweet at me versus email because it's just so quick. You know, you're limited to a certain amount of characters. You can link to things, and it's just a good way to connect. Okay, so I don't have to delete my Twitter account. Good.
Yes, no, you don't. Actually, for you, it'd be very beneficial to do that. Like, you want to make sure that you are active on Twitter because you are a public figure, because you have that podcast going on and connecting with people. So, yes, the fact that you've actually managed to break through on Twitter is good.
I
So,
wouldn't
most
say
people don't do
break
that.
through. I just, you've been using it for a while and like it. But awesome.
Yes.
Well, or you could say breakthrough. I like it when people say breakthrough. Okay, so we got clarity. So, actually, so we did, I think those are the main ones: Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Were we missing any? We talked about Snapchat before.
Pinterest, everybody always
Oh,
likes
yeah,
to ask me
Pinterest.
about Pinterest, and I would say unless you're e-commerce, that's kind of the only reason why it applies to you. It's a nice brand map. I've seen that for like catering companies. If you want like a nice Pinterest is like if you want to figure out what is the brand of a company, go to Pinterest. But the value and ROI and effectiveness is e-commerce.
In e-commerce, maybe we could define that a little bit further.
Products. So e-commerce products. So books. There's a whole book section. So like one of our clients is tableware and barware. Like that it lives on that thing. We jewelry companies, things like that. To link back, because here's the thing, Pinterest, as long as it's been through, I would say like 20-30% is original content. So what that means is that for every content that a business would put on there can get shared 2 to 3 pinned thousands of thousands times more effectively because there's just that ratio versus Facebook. It is 80% original content, 20% reshares.
Oh, okay.
But it's like you're not going to get shared if you're on an area that doesn't make sense. Now, wedding planners, the other effect of Pinterest is like if you're a wedding planner and you're blogging about how to do a wedding and things like that, then you can go into Pinterest because Pinterest is the arena of weddings. So
Cool. The one area, well, my sister is a graphic designer, really likes Pinterest because she's very visual and puts some of her stuff up there. Friend who sells jewelry, yes, Pinterest. And my fiance, Nikita, was getting into, and she may still dive a little bit deeper as a teacher. And there's this site called Teachers Pay Teachers where you make nicely designed academic material. And so they put it on Pinterest and then link to their blog and then to their Teachers Pay Teachers. And it's a whole little triangle of cuteness. That's my experience with it.
yeah, it's totally, like I said, the wedding planner example, it's exactly that formula. Link to the blog, link over to their get cuteness and things like that. But it's special niche targeting. So when you talk about Tumblr and you talk about Reddit and you talk about all the, like, those are high niche market targeting pieces that works if you have a product that can do that. But if you're talking about, so professional services like CPAs, lawyers, people like that, they're not going to do well with Pinterest and those things because, again, it's B2C versus B2B. So just something to keep in mind in targeting is like, are you targeting consumers or are you targeting businesses? And that will change your
Lawyers
ballgame.
definitely
100%.
are not visually oriented. And the reason I know this is we were trying to get a business lawyer in my networking group. And that's actually how we met. You're in another networking group and visited ours. And I was looking at a bunch of lawyer websites. Every single one of them, and it was like 6 in a row, had nearly the identical picture of the Austin skyline, which, I mean, granted, it's a pretty skyline. I like it. And the same picture of the Congress Bridge and sunset. And it's just like, who got the racket on designing every single lawyer's website? Because they just did a copy-paste job for sure. I just thought it was pretty funny.
Yep, and you just nailed it on the head. There are website designers that tailor only to lawyers. That is a thing.
Yeah.
That is a total thing. If you look at every single dealership back and you go side by side, they're identical in UX design for that reason.
One off question, would you recommend people hiring a web designer, or are you kind of a DIY it?
It is really based on you. In my honest opinion, we used a website designer for us. Like, we even used one, and I actually have background in website design. So, and here's the thing, you have to shop around for a website designer that best meets your fit. So same thing, it's like if I asked you, do you think that someone should hire a coach or hire a social media marketer, things like that? Someone said this really well to me the other day. He is a conference. He's designing this awesome conference. He's like, I'm really good at 2 to 3 things, and I know I'm good at those 2 to 3 things, but other things like branding, messaging, marketing, yada, 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 I'm going to find humans in my arena, in my area that will help me, because at the end of the day, you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So whether that be having an expert in web design, social media, marketing, whatever, you want to find those 5 people that you jive well with and you find as a credible human and work with them. And then at the end of the day, it obviously has to deal with budgeting and things like that. But if you're going to spend time and effort and money and investment, you want to make sure that you're finding the right personality.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the bigger productivity hacks out there, is to focus on your strengths. And that's what's so nice about being a business owner, is you can find what your 2 or 3, 4 talents are and double down on those, and take all of your weaknesses and either hire them out or automate them or delegate them somehow into your team. And I'm such a big fan of that. Design is one area that I'm atrocious at, and I recently hired a virtual assistant who is just wonderful at design and is making me look so much better. And I love it every time she makes me something new, because I'm like, right now I'm writing a blog post on email, and she came up with these really cute designs of, like, whack-a-mole, but emails popping up, or
Nice.
where you hit the sledgehammer and the little weight goes to the top and hits the bell. That's like you're trying to get to inbox 0. So I had these ideas and drew them terribly onto a piece of paper and uploaded them into Trello. And she came back a week or so later after a couple of iterations, and I'm just like, I look awesome. And not because I am awesome, just because I surrounded myself with Debbie. So shout out, Debbie.
Sweet. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes back to like create. I know we didn't tap on this really quick, but
Well, yeah, now, like, I feel like that was now we're really are talking creativity. So the clarity is what do you want, and define some of your goals, and kind of choosing the right platform. So if you're B2B, LinkedIn would be a better choice. If you're B2C and it's something visual, Instagram or Pinterest would be better. And if you just like people, Facebook is the place to go, and influencers like Twitter. So know your goals and know your platform, and then the creativity. So what does it look like? How do you help people in that stage?
okay, yes. So exactly. So once you figure out all those strategies, then you have to start looking at how am I going to implement it. So 2 things. The first thing is, what is it going to look like? And that's working. So in our case, we have our in-house graphic designers. So my COO and one of our team members, they're amazing, amazing graphic designers. It is so funny, all the things that they look at. But it's your brand. So think about it this way. If you're a productivity coach, so using back to you, Zach, as a productivity coach, you probably have a lot of quotes that you like to use and motivations and things like that. You can find a generic photo on Google and post it and then write the copy and call it a day. Or you can take a template designed from, and this is why I say have a graphic designer design this. So design it and you put it into Canva. So Canva is a really awesome tool that we love to show our clients how to use. We use it internally. It saves us a lot of time. It's basically a dumbed down version of like Photoshop. And it's really nice in the sense, but the power of it is having a graphic designer who has that eye go in and create a formatting of a tip or a quote with your branding on it. Because after a certain amount of shares on any social media platform, your original credentials may go away, or that person may just actually just download that photo and use it and take the exact copy and use it. Well, and also another thing is that people look at the graphics, they don't look at the copy as often. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're maintaining your credibility and your branding, and then you're catching their attention because it's all in one graphic. So when you're on Twitter, for example, because I know you like Twitter, Zach, you can only fit 120 characters, right? Because you also have to consider adding a link or whatever. So how you can't really do a tip as effectively in 120 characters, but you can create a graphic with the majority of the copy, with the copy and a nice photo and with your branding of that tip, and then you post it there with a shortened copy. in the copy part of the Twitter post. And then you stay under 120, you maintain your branding. And then most importantly is that people, as they consistently see that branding, your brand gets kind of more and more incepted into their mind. So that's kind of the power of it, of creating content. It's like, yes, you have all these content ideas, but it's owning that content and it's linking it back to your brand. Most business owners that come to us, when they start with us, they're like, I have a logo. And I'm like, great. We got to do more than that because it's your fonts, it's your colors. Like, even if you didn't have a graphic designer with you and you wanted to do a quote, like if I Googled right now, um, the life begins outside of your comfort zone, I'm going to find 50 different ways that someone designed that quote.
Mm-hmm.
But only 2 to 3 of those actually jive with the vibe of your brand. So it's even being as conscious as that, and even being as in further, like all those behind the scenes photos that you do and give to clients, that we have clients post on their social. Like when we run them through Instagram, we have set filters on them. Like our Instagram has a set filter because there's a certain vein. Like my personal Instagram is warm toned humans, and my artistic Instagram is very raw, natural, high end photography that I like because I have a photography background. So those are totally different vibes. And our social media as a C3 Nami is cool toned and aligned with the waves of our logo. So like even Instagram filters can be branded. So that's a little bit about creativity, is just how do you want your visual brand to look like? And the second most important thing is phasing. So it's like, great, I want to do all this content and I want to do all these things. It's a phasing process because the easiest way to get overwhelmed is you try to do it all in once and you bite more than you can chew and then you get overwhelmed. So that's why in education, we ask for a 6-month program, and we do a 6-month program, not just because it takes 6 months for analytics to fully kick in, but also because it's a constant iterative process. Have you ever read The Lean Startup?
Yes.
By chance? Yes. So the Lean Startup is always about theorizing, testing it out, and pivoting, but doing them in short cycles, right? And that's the same thing about social media. It's testing out your theory and strategy, creating it, making it and implementing it, making it happen, and then reviewing it and tweaking it. And so it's a constant feedback loop. And that's the part of the process that makes social media and what we teach implementable, is not only am I giving you the step-by-step process of how to do it, I'm also teaching you how to work with someone. So your VA, for example, she creates awesome things and you have a natural instinct to guide her in what you want to do because you have that background. But typically speaking, most business owners don't. When they hire someone, that person may be like, I have all these ideas, and they're like, great, go for it. But when they see the final product, there's a chance that they're like, oh, well, it doesn't feel like me. But then that's all they say to that person is, it doesn't feel like me. And then the person gets very frustrated because they're like, I need more feedback. So what we teach is that feedback loop of, what is the content? Where does it come from? What it looks like? How do you improve and review it? Like, make sure that there is verbiage about how to do it with constructive criticism versus taking it personally. And then how does it get distributed? So all the logistics, using the platforms and like Buffer and things like that to schedule it out, because yes, you want content to go out every day, but you don't need to post every day. You can actually schedule ahead of time. And then reviewing and making it happen, and looking at the analytics to see, okay, so this one drop that went into the pool didn't hit so well, kind of fell flat. Why? Let's refine it and then move forward and try it out in that iterative process again. And that is how you build efficiency in your social media and truly grow and scale what you're doing.
Okay. Let's take Instagram, for example. So when I hired Debbie, she was very keen to do lots of graphic work. So one of the first projects that we took on together was taking my large quote book and doing exactly what you said, put those quotes onto images. And she 100% has some sort of theme. I don't know enough about design to know what it is, but I know it's something, because it has a similar look. The colors feel similar. And a few times I actually posted on the Able Business Radio Instagram, which I'll put that in the show notes. People need to check it out. It's wonderful quotes because I've been collecting them for years, and amazing pictures because Debbie's really good at it. And how we know there's something going on behind the scenes is because I've posted on it and then deleted the post because I'm like, no, it just doesn't like fit the vibe of the Instagram. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to doing that, right now we know what's working and what's not working based off. Okay, we got a lot of hearts or comments on that one. Do you take it a
Hmm.
step further and try to see how many people are coming back to the website from that place, or how do you
So
test if it's actually that drop was actually successful?
So a lot of it is engagement on that platform. Note that people don't typically like hopping in and out of platforms. So you have to assess what is my total reach. Every single drop creates waves and it's consistently dropping into that pool that creates more and more waves. So you want your total reach. That's your end goal is to get more people, not only just that one time that they interact with you, you want them to come back every single time. So that's what we look for from an analytics point of view. But even from the like what we do, so you get to the point of posting and you're like, oh, I don't want to post this because it doesn't feel like me. What we try to do is to make sure that there's less of that happening by defining, okay, so if Zach and your podcast is a human, like if they're their own separate human, how do they act, walk, and talk? And that's what we define, and that will help like tighten that a little bit faster because while it's okay a few first few times and you're getting it to work and you're figuring out what works, it still costs time and money on your end. So what we want to do in the process is to make that tighten that process a little bit more and make that more efficient.
Okay, okay. So it's having a back and forth review process. What if somebody like me doesn't know the verbiage to use? Be like, nope, doesn't feel good. And it
Mhm.
just happened to be. It feels what the photos that she puts on there feel good to me. Every once in a while they don't, and we do have a process put in place where I review before they're posted, and I'll
Mhm.
explain particularly why. And a lot of times I think, oh, okay, well, that background image does not match what the quote is saying. And that's the only thing that I can give feedback on, but maybe
Mhm.
not artistically. How do you help people tweak when the individual doesn't have the background in design to know how to use words to describe what image they're looking for?
Well, so oftentimes the thing is that you are hiring someone that has a background in
Uh,
design. And but here's the thing, it's the thing about freelancers that you notice a lot of is that freelancers are really, really good at what they do, but most oftentimes they've worked with an account manager who did that techie translation, right? Is what I like to call it. Is like I'm a techie translator. I
mm,
translate from my graphic design team to my client of what works. And so I know the verbiage of how to talk to you, just like how I know the verbiage to talk to my graphic designers. And my graphic designers also, but what I do is my graphic designer is listening and how I communicate with my clients every single time. And that's how they learn how to therefore communicate themselves. So it's a two-way street. It's not just you learning how to communicate, but it's also that person learning how to communicate as a consultant,
mm.
not just a doer, but a consultant. And that's the thing, like what we essentially do in our education program is take what makes us so good as consultants and we teach it to others.
Cool.
So that's the basic thing of the feedback loop is that it's teaching you language and verbiage because when we design like your voice, it's not just working with you. We're actually having your VA sit in with us because that person may bring in some really awesome insight that we want to listen to as well. But it also completely merges those two voices together, and that's what makes it powerful.
So you said Instagram is B2C, and I'm more of a B2B'er.
Mhm.
How could I maybe reuse or recycle or somehow leverage the images that Debbie, let's be honest, has
Mhm.
been creating
Mhm.
over in Instagram?
hmm Well, Instagram directly connects to Facebook, so you can hop it on over to Facebook, and then share it onto LinkedIn as well. So keep in mind though, your clients, and your clientele are probably business owners, the small business owners that also use Facebook, and you just have to define what works for them. So some of your content on LinkedIn may be very technical focused, but your Facebook may be a combination of technical and feel good, and your Instagram is that nice visual portfolio. But the value of that Instagram is that you want to be able to mix it in with like speaking engagements and podcasts and things like that. So you can then therefore go, and when you're in business development meetings, so when you're out networking with people, you can actually say, yeah, it's really awesome, and here, let me show you. And you just pull up the Instagram, and then they see that beautiful grid of photos, and then it's just like they instantly get it.
Cool. Maybe that's why it's called Instagram. They
Yep.
instantly get it. All right. I'm feeling better. You've helped me with the feelings. So these are drops. Right now I'm putting drops in a bucket. I haven't built my tsunami yet, but as long as I keep things moving, you should get that. How do you know? Okay, so we're talking about small iterations, and I love that you brought up sort of building the MVP and iterating based off the lean startup. Definitely 100% agree with that philosophy. How do you know when you're about to break, or if you're doing something? You said 6 months was a reasonable amount of time. How do you determine long term if things are working or not working for you, or if you're on the right path or you're not on the right path?
It depends on going back to your business goals. So when we talk to our clients, so right now it's the middle of the year, and so I'm doing Q2 reviews. I do quarterly reviews with all my clients, and then in Q2, I'm looking at half year analytics. And so what I'm showing to the client is these are the goals that builds up 6 months over time, how that happens, how that works. But then I look back at the client and say, okay, we're halfway through the year. Your business goals have probably shifted and grown since the beginning of the year. What are those goals? And then we assess and we grow. So it's a constant growing process. And it always goes back to your business goals. So it's a journey. There's never an end. It is a journey. But the fun part is in the journey.
Put that on a pretty picture and slap it on my Instagram. So you need to know your goals, and you need to check in with those goals. And that's actually been really helpful. I did write down some goals personally that with social media, as well as with the podcast, has been really nice because you could just check in and see, oh, cool, I'm exceeding them, or okay, it's not quite getting there. What can we do differently? This last C, collaboration, is what I'm strongest at, and maybe I went into a little too headlong. So it's collaboration. So creating systems and processes for all the different social media aspects that you're doing. Because as soon as we started getting a cadence, I was like, we need to document this. I want a step-by-step process. I want to know how you do it. I want to know just like all of the things. And the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, we've been documenting the processes, except for what's been happening is we'll tweak something. I guess we just have to rewrite the processes. So maybe you can give some advice when it comes to collaboration.
So what we do is we walk our clients through a step-by-step build process, and at the end of the day, what you're getting is your systems and operations for running a social media marketing department equivalent. That's what we do. And that includes aspects of taking your large goals, building it into a theme and editorial calendar, utilizing tools like a social media schedule so you can easily create and approve content, and then all going back to that feedback loop of roles, how the roles fit, what are the standards, and it's looking at your analytics and going back to that feedback loop and seeing how it shifts or grows into it. What I do in 6 months is phase you into the whole thing, and then at the end of 6 months is that you should be running a fully functioning process that matches your needs. Because of your background as a productivity coach, you kind of have it down yourself already. But I think for like a typical person that starting from scratch, it is those pieces of going from the macro, the strategy, and the 3 C's, really then figuring out what it looks like and how you want it to look like. And then 3, in collaboration, is that feedback loop. Who creates the content, who edits it, who distributes it, and then read the analytics and see what is effective to your goals. So, and then it goes back in full circle again.
All right. And when you talk analytics, are we talking hearts, likes, retweets? Or are we talking?
It goes back to the first C, the original goals, because I can tell you that you as a coach has totally different goals, needs, and analytics than a product company because your business model is completely different from a product company model. So your social media is going to reflect the same. That's the thing of when I say that my job is to help you build a sustainable and scalable marketing process. It's the same thing as how it correlates directly to building a sustainable and scalable business. It all goes back to the processes. But the process is defined by that business.
Now, because it all goes back to the goals, there's really no no one answer for this, but maybe you can give me a ballpark about how much time maybe we can define three different people. Okay, Amy's Ice Cream, a local ice cream place in Austin,
Okay.
Texas.
Yeah, but they have franchise, so you're asking for a lot there. Okay.
Oh, okay, they are okay. So Amy's Ice Cream, who's a franchise. What's a non-franchise that we would both know about?
Yard bar. Let's do yard bar.
Okay, Yard Bar.
Hmm.
So also local business restaurant
Hmm.
and coach or consultant. So someone similar to me, maybe they work with other business owners or even
Hmm.
individuals. But how much time ballpark
Hmm.
expect someone in the business, maybe not the business owner, but number of total hours to be devoted to this endeavor of social media if their goal is obviously with the Yard Bar, get more people
Hmm.
to come in and eat. With Amy's Ice Cream, get more people to come in and lick. And with the consultant, get more people to connect and learn about their cool service.
It really depends on content volume. You just explained three that have potentially high content volume. So if you're posting on average once a day, every day, then you are expected to produce 7 posts. So on average, if you do a post, like highest efficiency is about 15 minutes. So keep that in mind. So 15 minutes times 7.
70 plus 35, 105 minutes, an hour 45. So a couple hours a week.
So a couple of hours a week, right? So then that means that typically what we suggest for our clients, if you're posting every single day, is schedule it out. It is more efficient to do everything in like one big sitting than to do it every single day, just because you're in the zone. Your mind has to have enough time to just dive down into that level and that mindset to make that happen. Typically speaking, then I would say you want to give yourself 2 times a month and give yourself about 3 to 4 hours to do all your social.
Okay. Do you have anything, a primer to get people going? Because I'm not sure. I sort of tweet as ideas and I come across good quotes or a neat concept that I've been reading about, and they sort of just happen naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And same with if I post it on Facebook anymore. The same thing would happen with all the other platforms. And I think if I sat down, I might have a difficult time coming up with more than like 2 or 3 in a row. How do folks get that out of them?
It depends on your campaign. So we set up what the campaigns look like, and we define if it's pre-curated content or even evergreen, which means that it's content that can be reused again and again and again, or it's in that moment post. So a lot of what you described is in that moment post. But if you're like a lawyer or a financial asset management firm or a product company or a security or plumbing company, you are more often than not having more pre-curated posts than live posts, versus restaurants are very in that moment, live in the moment, unless they run seasonal campaigns. And then they have a combination of pre-curated posts to live in that moment. So a restaurant is going to more likely have those in the moment things and then promotional campaigns layered upon it. So it's that layering effect of campaigns that we didn't get a chance to talk about today, but that's kind of how that works. So whereas the manager at Yard Bar may be posting once or twice a week on live and doing live in that moment posting, she might have pre-designed posts that goes out in advance that's about the food, the environment, or the events that are happening because those fall under an event strategy promotions.
Okay,
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, when you have some that are like promotions that you've thought of ahead of time, so you just want to schedule out, that would be good. And then you can do the in the moment, and then maybe you're curating from other people that you like or enjoy or just want to share about. There we go. Okay. I can now more see myself sitting down in Buffer and scheduling some stuff out and being more consistent, that extra C that was hiding in there.
And it doesn't have to be in that moment type things. Like if you have like your quotes, for example, there's no time limit to them. So you can bulk out and create like 3 months, pop them into an evergreen platform. And that's what evergreen stands for, is content that can be reused again and again and again. You just want to put like 6 months gap in between, so people don't remember or be like, hey, didn't they use that recently? Kind of scenario.
That's something you actually see on Twitter. I think people have finally stopped doing it, but they would post the same thing like 5 or 6 times because the Twitter stream is always updating. So they're like, well, you got to catch the Twitter stream. But then if somebody looks back on you, it just seems like you're repeating yourself all the time, which is kind of lame. All right. Well, I appreciate this free consulting session. And I hopefully everybody else out there listening appreciates that. And if you're local, head over to c3nami.com. We'll be sure to put that in the show notes. Any other places where if people want to connect with you online, you like to send them?
They can head over to our Facebook or Instagram, or just hop on over to c3nami.com.
Okay. And you're at C3Nami at all 3 of those?
Yes.
All right. Well, before I let you go, I always love to ask people, especially you, because you're a bit of a reader, reading Lean Startup and everything like that, a book, and you're also kind of techie. So a tool or resource that you recommend to folks to just be more productive, more efficient. It could be related to social media. It could just be something you want to get out into the world.
So a book that I always like to ask people. So one of the things, going back to, I'm a reflector for a lot of businesses. And so if the mirror is really foggy, that means that their branding and messaging isn't 100% defined. But there's also the other aspect of it, is that there is communication. Like, you want to be comfortable in communicating who you are. And again, it's like being able to do more of a constructive criticism and less taking it personally. So one book that I love that I think as fellow business owners would really relate to is a book called Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. It is about taking the power of vulnerability and being comfortable to dare greatly and share your message, but being comfortable with being vulnerable and not taking it personally or get really defensive as you continue to grow as a human. So that's kind of the book that I always like to suggest to people. And then a tool, Buffer is our best friend. Allows us to schedule out anything and everything pretty much from a social media perspective. And it's free. It's a beautiful thing.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I have learned a lot. I'm feeling a lot less anxious about social media. I feel like, okay, well, I'll be being more clear about what drops I'm putting on there, and hopefully a tsunami or two comes my way as that happens. So, Ruoyun, thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to connecting in Austin and around more often.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Able Business Radio. Zach wants to help more small business owners like you make 1% improvements that add up to big results. Was this show helpful? Pay it forward. Subscribing and writing a review in iTunes is one of the best ways to help more people find out about the show. Thanks again for tuning in. We hope to see you here next Wednesday, where we will continue to share 1% improvements that will help you become a more useful, less stressed business owner.